Good morning, dear students. Today we are going to discuss about redox titrations. What do you mean by redox titrations? Titrations in which oxidation and reduction takes place. That is called a redox titration. Here, oxidizing agents are titrated against reducing agents. Such titrations are called redox titrations. What are the common oxidants used in redox titrations? Potassium permanganate. One of the common oxidants used in redox titration. Such a titrations are called permanganometry. Another oxidant is potassium dichromate. Such a redox titrations are called dichrometry. Potassium dichromate. Cerium sulfate. Another oxidant is cerium sulfate. Cerium 6 sulfate. Not 6, cerium 4 sulfate. This redox titrations are known as cerimetry. These are the classes of redox titrations. Permanganometry, dichrometry, and this is cerimetry. Then first we have to discuss about titrations involving potassium permanganate or permanganometry. Here oxidizing agents are potassium permanganate. So they are titrated against reductants. Then what is the equation? MnO4 minus, that is our manganate ion, plus 8H plus 5 electron gives Mn2 plus 4H2O. Here electrode potential is equal to plus 1.51 volts. In acid medium, it gets easily reduced to colorless manganese ions, Mn2 plus ions, in redox reactions according to this reaction. Here, the electrode potential, that is the reduction potential E0 value is very high. Relatively high reduction potential value of manganate ion, MnO4 minus ion, has a high tendency to undergo reduction. This high potential shows the tendency of manganate ion to undergo reduction to Mn2 plus ions and thereby act as strong oxidizing agent or oxidant. That is, it oxidizes a large spectrum of reducing agents. What are the common reducing agents used in permanganometry? Oxalic acid, oxalate, ferrous nitrite, sulfite, azonite, hydrogen peroxide, etc. are used as reducing agents. So, in the titration of a definite volume of a colorless or slightly colored solution of a reducing agent against potassium permanganate, added from the burette, and there is no indicator used because potassium permanganate imparts a pale pink color to solution. So, the appearance of permanent pale pink color immediately after the equivalence point gives the end point of the titration. That is, potassium permanganate act as a self-indicating reagent. So, there is no necessary for adding indicator. Potassium permanganate itself act as a indicator. For example, hot oxalic acid, this is oxalic acid H2C2O4, can be titrated against KMnO4 in the presence of dilute sulfuric acid, which can be represented by this equation. 2 moles of KMnO4 reacts with 3 moles of H2SO4 plus 5 moles of oxalic acid to give K2SO4 plus 2 moles of MnSO4 plus 8 moles of water plus 10 moles of carbon dioxide. This is our redox reaction, redox titration. Here KMnO4 acts as an oxidizing agent and oxalic acid is a reducing agent. Normally KMnO4 is added from the burette to the reducing agent plus dilute sulfuric acid taken in a conical flask. Here we use only dilute sulfuric acid for the acidity. We cannot use concentrated sulfuric acid and nitric acid for acidifying the solution. Why? Concentrated sulfuric acid and nitric acid itself act as oxidizing agents that will interfere the reaction of permanganate with the oxalic acid. That is our reductant. So, here we only use dilute sulfuric acid for acidifying the solution, not concentrated sulfuric acid and nitric acid. Then what is the case of hydrochloric acid? We cannot use hydrochloric acid for acid medium because permanganate ion oxidize chloride ions to chlorine. That will cause positive error to the redox titration. Thus, the use of concentrated sulfuric acid, nitric acid or HCl makes errors in the estimation of permanganometry. Here the endpoint is appearance of permanent pale pink color to the oxalic acid solution. We know that potassium permanganate is not a primary standard, so it can be standardized using crystalline oxalic acid or more salt, etc. Next is dichrometry. Here oxidizing agent or oxidant is potassium dichromate. It is titrated against reducing agents. Potassium dichromate is a powerful oxidizing agent in acid medium. It can oxidize reducing agents like ferrous sulfate, nitrite, sulfite, etc. In these reactions, dichromate is reduced to green colored Cr3 plus ions in according to this reaction. Here Cr2O7 2 minus, that is our dichromate ion. In the presence of acid medium, it will reduced into Cr3 plus ions, that is in green color. For example, dichromatic titration in which potassium dichromate is titrated against ferrous sulfate FeSO4 in acid medium. K2Cr2O7 plus 7H2SO4 plus 6 FeSO4 gives K2SO4 plus Cr2SO4 thrice plus 7H2O plus 3 Fe2SO4 thrice. Potassium dichromate can be obtained in pure form and is an excellent primary standard. So, potassium dichromate is a primary standard. Then it is impossible to ascertain to determine the end point of a dichromate titration by simple visual detection as our permanganometry. In the case of permanganometry, potassium permanganate is a self-indicating indicator. Whereas in the case of potassium dichromate, here to determine the end point in titrations, we can use two different types of indicators. First one is external indicator method. Second one is internal indicator method. What is external indicator method? Here the endpoint is detected externally by testing a drop of the solution with the potassium ferricyanide. Potassium ferricyanide is known as external indicator. When potassium ferricyanide react with the ferrous ions, it gives deep blue color due to the formation of Prussian blue, that is a compound KFe, FeCN 6 times. This is Prussian blue, that is a complex of iron. So here ferrous ion reacts with the ferricyanide to form Prussian blue. That is the reaction, and at the end point there will be no ferrous ions are present. So the test drop gives no blue color with the ferricyanide. That is the end point using external indicator, no blue color. That is external indicator method. Another method is internal indicator method. That is our normal titration indicator used internally within the conical flask. That is internal indicator method. Examples for internal indicators are N-phenyl anthranylic acid, then diphenylamine, and sodium diphenylamine sulfonate. These are the three important internal indicators. Next is the chemistry of redox indicators. What do you mean by redox indicator? In the case of acid-base indicator, we studied that there will be a variation in pH. That is the basics of acid-base indicator. Whereas in the case of redox indicators, there will be a variation, a gradual variation of the potential of a particular redox system in a redox titration. This is our Nernst equation. This will follows the variation of potential of redox titration. E equal to E0 plus 2.303 RT divided by NF into log concentration of oxidized state divided by concentration of reduced state. This is our Nernst equation. According to this equation, during a redox titration, there occurs a gradual variation of potential of a particular redox system. In the near to the equivalence point of a redox titration, there occurs a sudden change in the potential of the redox system. Certain compounds which respond to this sudden change in potential and undergo a color change. Such compounds can be used to detect the end point of redox titrations and known as redox indicators. So, what is a redox indicator? A redox indicator is the one which marks the end point of a redox titration by undergoing a color change in response to the sudden change in potential that occurs in the vicinity of the equivalence point. Same as our acid base indicator. In case of acid base indicator, there will be a sudden change, color change occurs in response to the sudden change in pH, whereas here sudden change in potential at the vicinity of the equivalence point. So that is a redox indicator. A redox indicator is a compound which exhibits different colors in the oxidized and reduced forms. So, a typical redox indicator can be written as IN ox, that is oxidized form of indicator, plus N electron gives reduced form, indicator RED, reduced form. So, in oxidized form, it exhibits in one color, let it color A. In reduced form, its color will be another color, let it color B. Then, potential of the indicator EIN equal to E0IN minus 0.059 divided by N into log concentration of reduced form of indicator divided by concentration of oxidized form of indicator. For E0IN, that is the standard electrode potential. 0.059 is the value of 2.303 into R into T divided by F. F is the Faraday. On multiplying and dividing with Faraday, we get 0.059. Divided by N. N is the number of electrons transferred. Here the sign is minus. So, concentration of reduced state will be in numerator. Oxidized state, concentration of oxidized state will be in denominator due to the presence of negative charge. Then what is the potential requirements for a acceptable redox indicator? These are the conditions. Its change from one colored form to the other should be very rapid. Color change should be very rapid and reversible so that it may be repeated many times. Second criteria, it should not undergo any side reactions, no side reactions that would destroy its indicator properties. Then third one, it must not begin to change color until the substrate has virtually reacted, and its color change must be completed before any appreciable excess of the titrant appears in the solution. That is, perceptible color change between oxidized and reduced forms of the indicator requires a change in concentration of reduced form to oxidized form ratio from 1 by 10 to 10. That is, color change requires a change in ratio of concentration between reduced form and oxidized form. That ratio is from 1 by 10 to 10. By applying these values in this equation, that is log concentration of reduced form of indicator divided by oxidized form of indicator. Here we can substitute 1 by 10. That is the first case. Then we get a color A, that is E indicator equal to E0 indicator minus 0.0591 divided by N into log 1 by 10. That is color A. On substituting, we get E0In plus 0.0591 divided by N. That is color A. Then what is color B? By substituting 10 to this ratio, we get color B. Color B equal to E0 indicator minus 0.0591 divided by N. So on combining the above two equations, we can write EIN is equal to E0IN plus or minus 0.0591 divided by N. That is the color change. That is a detectable color change of the indicator occurs when the potential of the indicator system changes between values 0.0591 divided by N on either side of E0 indicator. That is, this is the value of E0 indicator. This is positive side. This is negative side of the indicator. So color change of an indicator occurs when potential of the indicator system changes between 0.0591 divided by N values on either side. This is positive side and this is negative side. Positive side means color A, that is E0IN, positive E0IN plus 0.059 divided by N. That is the color A potential. This is color B potential, that is negative side. Color B E0IN minus 0.0591 divided by N. That is the color change for a redox indicator. Then what is change in potential? Delta E. That can be obtained by subtracting one equation from the other. We get delta is equal to plus or minus 2 into 0.0591 divided by N. That is equal to plus or minus 0.118 divided by N volts. In other words, for a typical indicator to undergo detectable transition in color, the titrant must cause a change of 0.118 divided by N volts in the potential of the system. For many indicators, N equal to 2. So, a change in potential of 0.591 volt is sufficient to cause a detectable color change. Then last criteria for a redox indicator is the standard potential of the indicator must obviously lie between those for the two systems being titrated if it is to show a sharp color change, and it should be close to the equivalence potential also. What are the examples for redox indicators? First one is diphenylamine. It is used for the estimation of Fe2 plus against dichromate in the presence of dilute sulfuric acid. In reduced form, diphenylamine is colorless, while in the oxidized form it is violet. This is the proposed mechanism for the in color change. This is colorless diphenylamine. 2 moles of diphenylamine dimerized into diphenylbenzidine. This is the structure of diphenylbenzidine by the elimination of 2 moles of H plus and 2 electron. And this is again colorless, and which is in reversible with the, this is benzenoid form, which is reversible with the quinonoid form. When the lone pair of electrons present in nitrogen shifts to this bond will shift to this bond, then this double bond will shift to this bond, then this double bond will shift to this bond, and this double bond will shift to this bond. This is our quinonoid structure. And a lone pair of electron loss for this nitrogen, so here it acquires positive charge, that is NH plus. When the lone pair of electrons lost, that is 2 electron lost, here also nitrogen acquires positive charge, and this is the loss of 2 electron. Then we get quinonoid form. Quinonoid form of diphenyl benzidine is violet color. So this is the proposed mechanism of redox indicator diphenylamine. The disadvantage of diphenylamine is its difficulty to soluble in water. So sodium salt of diphenylamine sulfonic acid is used for the detection of endpoints in redox titration, which is soluble in water. Another indicator is our N-phenyl anthranylic acid. That is another redox indicator suitable for Fe2 plus versus dichromate titration, and the color changed from colorless to red violet. This is the structure of N-phenyl anthranylic acid. Next is iodometry and iodimetry. Here the titrations involving iodine and liberated iodine as redox titration. What do you mean by iodimetry? That is direct titration of a standard solution of iodine against a reducing agent is called iodimetry. Whereas titration of iodine liberated from a chemical reaction with a suitable reducing agent is called iodometry. And both iodimetry and iodometry involve oxidation and reduction reactions. So it is again a redox titration. Normally the reducing agents like sodium thiosulfate, arsenous oxide, sodium arsenate, etc. are used as reducing agents in iodimetry. For example, iodine oxidizes. Here iodine acts as an oxidizing agent. Iodine oxidizes sodium thiosulfate to sodium tetrathionate according to this equation. Here starch solution is used as the indicator. It is added at the end of the titration. Starch reacts with the iodine in the presence of iodide ions to form an intensely blue colored complex. Blue colored complex. Starch and iodine form intensely blue colored complex, which is visible even at a very low concentration of iodine. So starch, that is our indicator, is added at the end of the titration only. Once the whole of the iodine is reduced to iodide, the above blue color vanishes and thereby gives the endpoint. So, at the end of the titration only we have to add starch as indicator and it will generate blue color. Then at the end point, the blue color vanishes. That is the reaction. Iodine has slight solubility in water. Then concentration of aqueous solution of iodine decrease during the reaction due to the volatility of iodine. So, in order to overcome this difficulty, iodine solution is usually prepared by dissolving iodine in potassium iodide solution. We know that iodine is evaporating gas. So, iodine solution is prepared by dissolving iodine in aqueous potassium iodide solution. Iodine is dissolved readily in aqueous potassium iodide due to the formation of triiodide ion, that is I2 plus I minus. Iodine dissolved in I minus ion to form I3 minus ion. Then any oxidant like potassium permanganate or potassium dichromate can be used to oxidize potassium iodide to an equivalent amount of iodine. For example, 2 moles of KMnO4 plus 8 H2SO4 give plus potassium iodide gives 6 moles of K2SO4 plus MnSO4 plus H2O plus iodine. So, the liberated iodine, that is this iodine, can titrated against sodium thiosulfate. Iodine acts as an oxidizing agent and sodium thiosulfate acts as a reducing agent using starch as indicator. That is our reaction. Iodine plus Na2S2O3, sodium thiosulfate, to form Na2S4O6 plus 2 moles of NaI. Here starch is used as the indicator. So, first step is preparation of iodine solution by dissolving potassium iodide and forming triiodide ion. Then which is titrated using potassium permanganate or potassium dichromate to liberate iodine. This liberated iodine titrated against potassium thiosulfate using starch as the indicator. This is the basis of iodometric methods. Copper sulfate can also be estimated iodometrically. Here excess of potassium iodide is added to the copper sulfate. Instead of KMnO4, we can use copper sulfate and excess of Ki and not used for acidification. So, copper sulfate plus potassium iodide gives K2SO4 plus CuI2. Then CuI2 gives Cu2I2 plus I2. That liberated iodine can be titrated against sodium thiosulfate. Here cupric ion converted into cuprous ion and iodine liberated. This liberated iodine can react with the sodium thiosulfate and starch is used as the indicator.